All right, so this is a translation of chapter 39, Karthago, lines 1 through 76. From Virgil's Aeneid, Book 1, with the poetry resolved. There was an ancient city, Carthage, on the shore of Africa, situated, or established on the shore of Africa, across from Italy, rich and warlike. Juno is said, Dicitur, is said to have loved this city more magis than all others ablative of comparison. She was desiring this to become the empire, the ruler of all nations. But she had heard that a race, Ortum, having arisen from Trojan blood, would at one point sack the citadel of Carthage. Fearing this and mindful of the old war which she had waged against Troy on behalf of her dear Greeks, for she had not yet forgotten the source of her anger and sorrow, the judgment of Paris, who had judged that Venus was the most beautiful goddess. So, fearing this and mindful of the war, she was keeping the Trojans far away from Latium, the Trojans tossed throughout the whole sea. Therefore, driven by fate, they were wandering for many years now around all the seas. It was such a struggle to establish the Roman nation. That's a genitive of description. Scarcely out of sight of Sicily, they were happily, this is an adjective I'm translating as an adverb, they were happily setting sail into the deep when Juno, nourishing or guarding, safekeeping the eternal wound underneath her chest, said these things to herself, literally with herself. She's so angry she can't even use a nominative or an indicative. So, me to not be able to turn away the king of the Trojans from Italy? Surely Minerva was able to break apart the fleet of the Greeks with winds and to drown them on account of the crime of Ajax alone, right? Of one Ajax. But I, the queen of the gods and both sister and spouse of Jove, I am waging war, bellum guerro, with one tribe for so many years. Thinking such things, Talia, with herself, animo intenso, with her heart ablaze, the goddess came into Aeolia, the homeland of clouds. Here, King Aeolus holds the winds and the storms in chains in a great cave. The king himself sits on an exalted citadel holding a scepter. Then Juno, as a suppliant, besought him that he should sink or break apart the fleet of Aeneas. And at the same time, she promised to him that, this is an indirect statement, her most beautiful nymph, her nymph who is most beautiful in beauty, in form, as his wife. Aeolus, when he heard these things, struck the hollow mountain with his spear, and the winds rush out of the cave, agmine facto, ablative absolute, as if with a battle line having been drawn up. Eurus, that is the east wind, and Notus, that is the south wind, and Africus, that is the southwest wind, disturb the lands and the seas, and they roll massive waves to the shores. Suddenly, the black clouds hide the sky, and thick lightning bolts, flashes of lightning with thunder, um, sparkle, gleam in the shadows. Everything shows present death, that is, death um, on the verge of being present to the sailors. Immediately, Aeneas, holding up his hands stiff with cold to the sky, exclaims, "O happy men who were allowed," literally to whom it was allowed, quibus liquit, "who were allowed to die in our fatherland under the high walls of Troy. If only I also had poured out my life on behalf of my fatherland in Trojan fields." While he tosses about such words, a swift gale, it's a really strong wind, tore the sails and lifts the waves towards heaven. The oars are broken, then with the prow turned to its side, the side of the ship is beaten with waves. Remember, alius, Latin says others do this, others do that. English says some others. Some ships are lifted up on the top of the wave. Others touch the bottom between waves. 3 are snatched away onto hiding rocks. 3 are carried into the shallows. And a huge wave, ingens fluctus, a huge wave strikes one before the eyes of Aeneas himself, and whirls it around 3 times. Then a rapid whirlpool devours it. There appear a few men swimming in the massive whirlpool. Meanwhile, Neptune, when circumstantial or causal, because he perceived the sea to be disturbed with such a great storm, deeply moved, raised his head from the top of a wave, and looking out, saw the fleet of Aeneas torn apart through the whole sea. Then he called Eurus and Zephyr to himself and spoke thus: "Do you now dare, O winds, to disturb sky and land without my approval, my divine nod, my authorization, and to stir up such great storms? You," with a threat left unsaid, "but it is better to calm down the disturbed waves. Hurry home and say this to your king. The rule, imperium, of the sea and the savage trident were not given to him, Ili, said Mihi, but to me." Thus he spoke, and faster than you can say, "Jack's my uncle," literally more swiftly than the saying, he calmed down the swollen sea, dispelled the gathered clouds, and brought back the sun. The tired companions of Aeneas, seeking the closest shores, turn their course to the shores, the beaches of Africa. There is in a long bay a place where an island makes a safe port in between 2 boulders on which every wave is broken. To this place, Aeneas gathers the 7 ships which survive or remain out of the whole number. And the Trojans, having disembarked from their ships with great joy, cast their tired bodies on the shore. And first, Achates makes a fire, and the companions, lacking food, toast the wet grain with the flames. Meanwhile, Aeneas climbs a boulder and looks out far and wide into the sea. No ship was in sight, but he saw 3 stags wandering on the shore, stags whom a herd in a long line were following. A herd was following. Quickly, he snatched his bow and arrows, which weapons faithful Achates was carrying, and he first laid low the leaders themselves, the leaders of the herd themselves. Then he drove the whole herd into the forest, and did not cease before 7 huge carcasses were lying on the ground. From here, he headed back to the harbor and divided the spoils with all his companions. Then wine, which good Acastes had given to them, setting forth from the shore of Sicily, he divided, and he consoled the sad companions with these words, with these things having been said. And that's where your translation for Monday picks up.